brand is the experience that people have with you and your business. All touch points everywhere. So whether you're talking to someone at the grocery store about your business or you're making a social media post, all of that is branding at its whole.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And today I'm joined by Christi Cooper. She is a genius in branding and design, and I'm really excited to have her here on the show. Hello, Christi.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Well, Christi and I got to know each other through a community that we were both members of, and she really impressed me with how generous she was, and of course, colorful. Christi, why don't you take a moment and talk to us a little bit about what led you to being an expert in branding? What do you really specialize in the most?
Well, I currently specialize in helping experts with their personality-powered brands and websites. And what led me there is I've just been a designer my whole life since I was 17, so a long time, 26 years. I started in print design. I went to university. I worked at an agency. I got burned out. Like the whole story, right? Like the whole agency burnout. Started my own business. Then when I started my own business, I worked with anybody and everybody. I think that's a typical entrepreneurial story, right? You just try to figure out who you want to work with. And I just really fell into working with a lot of coaches and consultants and service providers, just individual kind of solopreneurs or those who had small teams. And I really enjoyed that work and found that that was where my talent was, in bringing out the personality in their visual branding and their visual website, combined with strategy and all of that as well.
That's really, really cool. And I mean, 26 years as a designer, that's really incredible. So when you're working with somebody and you're not even working with somebody, let's back that truck up. Let's say you're beginning to think about working with somebody and maybe you're researching them, you're checking out their socials, you're checking out their website. What would you say is the big cry for help that you're seeing when it comes to design? The people, you wish people would be hiring you for this.
I think it's when I see a huge disconnect between who they are on social media and when I go to their website or their landing pages. That's one thing. Their website will look like something, but they show up as someone else on social media. It's has a disconnect there that just makes it feel off. Also, I see a lot of really confusing websites that I don't know what they do. I don't know how to get to their offer. I don't know how you can help me. There's a lot of things that go on in a website specifically that can really turn off a viewer really quickly. So those are some of the biggest ones I see. I see a lot of vague language on websites, especially coaches. I see a lot of jargony, live your best life, and I understand what they're trying to say, but it's it's so big and vague and what everyone else is saying, it doesn't resonate with people. And so that's another thing I see a lot is messaging as well.
Yeah, I love that. And, you're so right too about the congruency thing. When people, just the human mind, our psychology, we're looking for trust. We're always looking for this consistency, and it could be consistency in rhythm. That's one of the big things that I see a lot of coaches struggle with and entrepreneurs struggle with when it comes to client acquisition is they don't have consistency with how often they're appearing on social media or how they're appearing on social media. What they're saying on social media. So, or, maybe they're silent altogether.
Right.
Most people really do accept, though, that they have to have a website. And what I see is a lot of people doing it quick because you're supposed to do it, but not necessarily pausing to think about what is the cohesive idea here? What am I trying to present to the world? Can you do me a favor and just share with us, what is your definition of brand? I have mine, but I love asking actual professionals in the branding space.
Yeah,
How do
yeah.
you define it? Because it always seems to be a little bit different.
It's such a like jargon word, right? Like in the industry, it's like your branding affects this, your branding affects that. And like at its
Mhm.
essence, brand is the experience that people have with you and your business. All touch points everywhere. So whether you're talking to someone at the grocery store about your business or making a social media post or you've got your website or you've brought your client on and now you're giving them their onboarding materials, like all of that is branding at its whole. It's really the experience and impression that people have of you and your business. And I find with coaches, it can get a little confusing because they might be just building their personal brand as a business, or they might have a company name that they're trying to build. And sometimes they don't know how that all works together.
Yeah, I noticed you were like not saying that where's the line. You were saying like how does all that work together? Branding is such an interesting subject. When I teach it, I always say it's all the things that you do and don't do that leaves an impression on someone, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a really overwhelming idea because it's like already it's, try to list everything that you are doing. But then try to list all the things that you're not doing. And, it ends up being a pretty overwhelming thing pretty fast. I'm curious, like, when you see somebody that has clearly invested, time, energy, money into messaging, publishing, posting, being serious about their business, obviously, what do you think is the main reason that they don't seek alignment in that brand experience? Like, what do you think causes it to go to the back burner, and what's the cost of that?
I think that sometimes they just don't realize that it's so inconsistent from the outside point of view. Because it's like it's so easy when you're in your own business and you know all the things that you do and have put out there and you feel like you're being consistent or you feel like you're saying this thing all over the place, but people only see like one snippet here and one snippet there. And so their experience is a lot different than your experience.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of that has to do with not really realizing that it is out of alignment. Or maybe they fell into someone, expert, guru, someone on the internet saying, you need to do it this way, and you need to do this, and you need to do this, and they follow that. Or they're trying to copy someone who they admire, right? And they're like, if I just do it like them, I'll be successful. And then they don't have like what makes them unique in that picture. So I think there's a few things going on. So maybe they're not realizing it. Maybe they're following the advice of someone, or they're trying to emulate someone that they admire, thinking that's the key to success.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I love this subject, especially as a high performance coach, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of coaches on their performance more generally. And branding is one of those things, and like driving the consistency of message and consistency of experience. I love how you said that. There's no greater tool, I think, for activating your own personal growth and development, right? It forces you to really say, am I for this? Am I against that? Like, what am I really trying to say? And why does that matter? And like that feels like a really cognitively hard thing to work through, and so I can see why, copying and pasting seems like a good thing, or like hopping into Canva and just like bloop, or just speaking into AI, like give me a logo. What do you think is the missing piece people often have when they do decide, you know what, I want to be more intentional with my branding? What do they usually focus on, and what should they focus on instead?
Sometimes people get hung up on logos, which as a designer, I should be like, I love logos. I really don't. They serve a purpose as a brand identity, especially in the online world. They really don't have a big impact on your brand and your business, like as long as they're legible and they kind of go with the personality of it. People sometimes think they need to redo their website, but really what they need is more of like clarity in their messaging and their offers and their audience. Like sometimes there's that. I get a lot of kind of different things. It's interesting. So I do what's called a True Brand Power Plan, and it's basically a deep dive interview, and I ask a bunch of questions, and like people get hung up in different places. Like sometimes it's like, what are your core values? And people are like, oh wait, let me sit down. Like, let me think about that for a moment. Because your values are really the anchor of your business brand and your personal brand, and they drive you, and like that should be reflected in your messaging, and the look and feel of it can come across, like what kind of feelings and emotions are we trying to communicate. So yeah, or people get hung up. I do ask the question, like, are you for or against something specific in your industry? And sometimes people just don't know. Like, it's like, let me think about that. It's an interesting thing. I think I got off track there, actually.
Not at all. No, it's perfect. I think that's the thing about brand is that I know so part of my brand from the very beginning was that I was anti-brand, right? And I looked at it, I saw it as being something that was, what nefarious people did or deceptive people did to, pry my wallet open. Just being totally blunt about it. So I was very anti-branded. I was like, oh, like branding doesn't matter. It's just a waste of time. No one cares what color it is. No one cares. And what I've learned is there's levels to the game, right? I think when you're very first starting, it's more about having the courage to start. And it's more about, having the courage to ask and to invite and to connect and to serve. Like there's a lot of courage activation that starts at level 1 of the game of entrepreneurship. But very quickly, when you're starting to move to the next level and the next level and the next level, and you start encountering these ceilings on your growth, this friction, you're like, why am I not being chosen for this opportunity? Or why am I not being thought of first? Or why the hell am I not getting the referral? I would think I'd be getting a referral. Why am I not getting a referral? And, like there's these questions that start to come up as you start encountering the next ceiling and the next ceiling and the next ceiling of your growth. What would you say is like the time that somebody, and I'm assuming you agree with me that like branding maybe doesn't matter in the first few days of business, but like, what is the point where it's like, look, this is not a negotiable, like you need to sort this ish out?
Yeah. I would say, as people have started to see success in their business and they might start to be getting bigger opportunities, but then they're kind of wondering why other opportunities aren't also falling into place. A lot of times it has to do with that online impression that people have when they go and visit. Like it's really hard. I network a lot and I talk to people and I love to refer people out to others. But if I go to your website and it doesn't say that you do the thing that you told me you do, I can't share that with people. Like, or
right. It's not congruent.
It's not congruent. Or if it looks like if it looks confusing or they can't find the contact information or it just looks really outdated. Like I had a client I think it was last year we worked together. Like she launched a book and she was getting all this PR and she really needed her website to be redone. She's like, I did it myself. It looks okay, but it's not national level visibility, professionalism. And because we redid it, then that opened doors for her for bigger opportunities. It made it really easy for, Hello Sunshine to like say, hey, we can bring her in and speak to do these workshops and things. And so I think there is an expectation of a certain level of, I say professionalism, but professionalism is such a catchword. Like people have different opinions of it, especially if they come from corporate space, right? But I think there is a certain level of like image. I mean, we're an image-driven society, whether we like it or not, that people expect when you're at a certain level. So if you're seeing yourself at that level and you're getting to that bigger level, you kind of have to look like you're at that level for people to take you more seriously.
Yeah. I do think that there is such a thing as professional standard. And, I, when I left corporate, again, like I love this subject because it really does bring up a lot about personal stuff and like, how are you processing your transition from what was to what is and navigating the realities of the difficulties as well as the benefits of entrepreneurship. And I remember, I didn't want, like, I've got a nail color on right now. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening, it's like this like icy sea foam kind of a color. Never ever, when I was in corporate America, would I ever, have a color that was so bold or add like sparkles to it or even red framed glasses. Like just like those personal choices of the expression of my style. I wouldn't do that in a corporate setting because the professional standard was that as a consultant, I was meant to blend. I was meant to be a part of a larger, organization and a team and a representation of the teams. I even got reprimanded once for being too colorful in my dress. And I learned very quickly, I'm like, oh, okay, jewel tones are like the max of what I can do in a corporate setting. And as an entrepreneur, I really enjoyed the freedom of being able to express myself, however I darn well chose. But, it's kind of like I was saying with the game, when you're in level 1 of the game, no one cares what you look like because they just love seeing an underdog get started, right? But when you start to represent the interests of more and more money, more and more people, more and more influence, there are standards that, depending on what industry you're in, like that is a reality. So I almost think of like branding as just like, what's my answer to that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize.
Christi,
yeah.
Oh,
anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say thank you so much for spending your time with us and, sharing your valuable perspective. Your brand, so approachable, right? You obviously appreciate color and design and all of those things. But I think one of the things I really appreciate about you is that you're just so down to earth, and I love that. It's a beautiful thing and so needed in our space in particular. So thank you so much for being here on the show to share some of your wisdom with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Amanda.
Yeah, my pleasure. And what's the best way for somebody to keep up with you?
Yeah, I'm most active on LinkedIn, so you can find me over there. It's Christi, Christi Cooper. Yeah, follow me there. I'll be sharing more content as we go.
I love it. I love it. So good. And dear listener, if you've got a friend who's been, a victim of ugly websites, make sure you share this episode with them with a big heart and saying, it's not about you. I just have another friend that needs to take a look at their branding and design. Just grab the link to this and share it with 3 of your friends who are working on their brand presence. And you know what? If you haven't already, make sure you smash that subscribe button. A lot of people rely on my Instagram or LinkedIn to tell them when the next episode is out, but you can actually hit subscribe. And that does 2 things. Number 1, you don't have to keep track of us on social media, which means you can stay nice and focused. And number 2, it actually signals that our show is great. So we really appreciate you doing that. And if you're just like, oh my God, I love you guys, doing a review for us is just always super appreciated because, people have so many choices when it comes to podcasts, especially, and we just genuinely really appreciate your honest feedback on the review. Until the next episode, my friend, we will see you again very, very soon. And until then, just stay sharp, stay focused, and do what matters.